Hello, Rangers fans, and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. The podcast tonight is a solo show with just myself, obviously building up towards tomorrow night, where we will have three people on the show. Those three people who will be on the show tomorrow night are myself, obviously, and Victoria Searle, who is now back from her travels. And there is Victoria in the live chats. Hi, Owen. Welcome, everyone. Victoria is still not feeling 100% well. She sounds a bit like, she sounds a bit like a man at the moment. No offense, Victoria, with her gravelly voice. Guys, trying a few technical difficulties here with my ring light. Anyway, guys, let's talk. Obviously, we're building up towards the game on Saturday. Now, on tonight's podcast, we're going to talk about John Bennett, the new chairman of Rangers, and what his pressing issues are coming as he takes the job. We're going to talk a little bit about the selection dilemmas that face Michael Beale for Saturday. We're going to talk a little bit about Rangers' European payout or payday, which was revealed in the papers today. We're also going to talk about some transfer speculation as well. Now, obviously, tomorrow night, guys, we are also going live here on Glasgow Rangers Nation. That is the thing to look out for on the channel. It is myself, Victoria, and David Marshall from Heart and Hand will be on. And I'll be talking about Douglas Park, so I'm going to try and avoid that tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about Connor Goldson's comments. In case you haven't checked it out, guys, I did release a video earlier all about Connor Goldson. Is Connor Goldson right with what he said in his comments to the media? And we're going to talk about that in a bit more depth, obviously, with David and Victoria tomorrow. And also, obviously, on tomorrow's show, we're going to really preview the Old Firm game, the big game coming up this weekend, guys. Let me know where you're going to be watching it from. And obviously, tomorrow night, we'll be doing predictions and everything else. But tonight, we're obviously going to discuss news that's come around the club. Like I said, John Bennett, the money, position dilemmas, etc., etc. Let's have a look at the live chat tonight. Really important, guys. As always, this is your channel. This is a fan-driven channel. We're joined by Jordan in the live chat. Good evening, Owen. Hey, Jordan. By Nicholas Moore. Good evening, everyone from South Wales Loyal. By Brian. Evening, everyone. Nicholas again. There's some bloke called Glasgow Rangers Nation. Don't know who he is. Some dodgy geezer, apparently. We're also joined by Rangers Union as well in there. Says, hey, everyone, let's smash Celtic. Nicholas follows up that with a comment. Let's smash the scum. Rangers Union has a question for me, which I will get to soon. Obviously joined by my good friend Caroline as well. Caroline, great to have you on board. Lots of people saying hello to each other, and obviously joined by my co-host. Hopefully she'll be feeling better soon, Victoria. Hi, Owen. And apparently Victoria sounds like Darth Vader. That's a big one. So hi, everyone. That's good as well. Anyway, guys, let's start off by talking about John Bennett, shall we? We'll talk a little bit about John Bennett. John Bennett obviously has taken over now as chairman of Rangers. He is a Rangers fan through and through. And obviously he's someone who believes in talking to the media. He's someone who believes in, communicating with the people, talking with the people, and really getting involved with the people, and that's good. He was critical, I think, a little bit of how the club handles its communication with the fans, and obviously we know that Douglas Park didn't like talking to the press. Cody Smith in live chat. Cody, how you doing? I'm going well, thank you. We're going to talk a little bit about him. So, he's got a lot on his plate, hasn't he? Liz Perkins as well, my good friend as well, says, hey, Owen. Hey, Liz, how you doing? He's got an awful lot on his plate, hasn't he, coming into this into his new role. He's got transfers, he's got arrivals and departures in the transfers, he's got the worry of that little mob from across the city to worry about, he's got the feeling of the fans towards certain parts of his team. He's also got finance on his mind, he's got Europe on his mind, he's got an awful lot. Now, for someone obviously on there starting their job, it's an awful lot of in his inbox, isn't it? There's an awful lot for him to think about, an awful lot for him to consider, an awful lot for him to think about. And obviously, we obviously want him to do well. We want to wish him all the best. That's definitely good. Now, let's talk a little bit about Douglas Park. Let's talk about one of his first pressing issues. So Nicholas says here, let's get the comments up first. We'll be watching the game in Cardiff with my good friend Brian, who is flying down from Glasgow tomorrow. We will be in Gareth Bale's bar with Cardiff Brian Laudrup, RSC. And Caroline says, hope the communication is better under the new chairman. Let's hope so, Caroline. Kurt says, how are you, Rangers News? Also, hi on behalf of me. Yeah, Rangers News on Facebook, really good group, guys. If you haven't yet checked it out, Cody is one of the admins for that. Please go and check that out. It's a great group on Facebook. But, like I said, transfers is one of his big issues. Obviously, this summer promises to be a huge one for Rangers, with obviously a number of players due to depart at the end of their contract, and also apparently some in-contract players as well, rumoured to be departing the club. But, what is it that Park needs to do? He needs to obviously try and ensure that the money and the finances are there for Michael Beale and for obviously Ross Wilson, who is a figure of contention, to go out and recruit those players. As Michael Beale said in that news conference that he gave before the Dundee game, there's 5 names he's identified, but he didn't put any limit, did he, on the number of players that he wants to see come in. There's obviously the issue with the 9 players who are out of contract, or obviously with the case of Malik Tillman, with their loan expiring. He's got decisions to make there. Obviously, he needs to okay any finances, okay wages, and look at that situation. So he's obviously, whilst obviously that is left to Ross Wilson and Michael Beale, John Bennett has to oversee all of that. Not only that, but he's got to look at the arrivals as well. What budget is there for the manager? How much money is there for the manager to spend on new players this summer? That's a big one. So at the end of the day, it's a lot for John Bennett to take on, a lot of consideration, for him to really, think of and actually look at as the chairman on this side of things. And he has got a critical job this summer. He's got to oversee Ross Wilson, Stuart Robertson. He's got to oversee Michael Beale. He's got to oversee the whole transfer strategy that Rangers go into the summer with, and he's got to sign off on this. And it's a massive thing for this club, a huge thing. If we get this summer right, we are going to be, with the players we've already got, in a position to really challenge that mob from across the city. If we get this wrong and we don't sign the right players, we bring in the wrong names, we bring in injured players, we bring in players who are not ready to play at this level, then you are really going to have a situation where this club is going to struggle. And that is not what we want. We cannot afford to have another season falling behind Celtic. So that's obviously one of the big concerns for Bennett, going into his new job. Obviously, the other thing is, the fact that, the Celtic situation, the fact that Celtic obviously are 9 points clear this season. They won the league last season. Obviously, we're going to try and stop them winning the treble this season by hopefully retaining our Scottish Cup. But it's another concern for him. He's got the pressure of that coming from across the city, and something again is in his inbox that he's got to think about. He's got to think about how he's best to counteract the threat of Celtic, how he's best to counteract the threat of Fatange. What is the situation there? And that again is something that he has in his inbox, something else for him to worry about. Okay, so what else? Fan feelings. What do I mean by fan feelings and fan emotions? Well, he's also got what to worry about as well, the way that the fan group base are, I think, quite divided on the whole Ross Wilson, Stuart Robertson debate. You've got the Union Bears who are, at games campaigning against Robertson and Wilson, and you've got the Time for Change banners. You've got the pictures of Robertson and Wilson with the cancelled signs across them. Live chat, I'd love to know, what are your opinions on Ross Wilson and on Stuart Robertson? I'd love to know what you actually think of them, and how you think that, they've done a job. Now, it seems to me that Michael Beale has faith in Ross Wilson, and I think this is a huge transfer window for Ross Wilson, and I think again John Bennett has got to oversee all that as well. And he think if Wilson gets this wrong, if Wilson doesn't get this situation right with the whole transfer, then Bennett has got a very big decision to make, to start some way through next season before the January transfer window. Is it that he sacks Wilson and finds someone else to be sporting director? Or does he do away with the sporting director position altogether and leave it in the hands of himself and Michael Beale in terms of signing players? That is another concern, another thing they've really got to think about in the new season. So, guys, what do you think of Wilson? What do you think of Robertson? Let me know in the live chat. Europe is another concern. Europe is something else. Rangers obviously had that fantastic run to the Europa League final last season. But at the end of the day, it's a situation where he's still got to think about, next season we need to be in the Champions League. We need to have a run in Europe. We need to use Europe to earn some finances. The board are trying to run this club, I think, very financially soundly. They're trying to obviously not have a situation where they are in the same place as they were 12 years ago. They want a situation where this club is sound financially. And I think he's obviously got to put money into it. Now, money, the best way to raise money is not just through the fans, it's not just through the turnstiles, it's not just through buying the merchandise, it's not just through all that. Europe is another big source of revenue. If you consider that the average payout in the Champions League is £53 million, that is an awful lot of money to bring into the club. And we're joined by Curry Muncher. Sooner Robertson is out, the better. He was the clown that organised that Australian debacle. So that's Curry's opinion on it. You know, he thinks time for Robertson to go. I'd love to know what you think of Ross Wilson, Curry. Let me know what you think of that. Let's quickly check on the live chat. Curry, mate. Ross Wilson, try not to think about him. He's a waste of thought, says Brian. Nick says, definitely Brian, the guy's a waste of space. It's obvious Beale likes working. That Beale likes working with, I presume that's Wilson, so they have the summer transfer window as a last chance. I think that's a very sensible point, Curry, that, this is the last chance saloon, isn't it, for Beale, not for Beale, but for Wilson. I think, he's got to listen, I think, to his manager. He's got to listen to what his manager wants. Now, if we go to the players that were brought in January, you look at Raskin, you look at Cantwell, quality players. We also apparently narrowly missed out on bringing in Morgan Whittaker from Swansea as well, a winger. But I think you've got a situation where those two players are absolute ultimate quality, aren't they? I mean, Raskin, I think, was a miss against Dundee United. His urgency to get the ball forward, his ability to always look forward, to pass the ball forward, to run forward, to move the ball forward. And we'll talk a little bit about Raskin on Saturday shortly in the pod. But overall, I think it's a situation where you've got to give him perhaps his last window working with Michael Beale. And like I said a few moments ago, if this window goes wrong, if we are not in a position where we are competing directly with and outdoing our neighbours from across the city, is it Wilson that has to take the fall? Michael Beale clearly has an eye for a player. I think that is definitely the case. Millwall Ranger 56 says, watching from Vancouver, Canada, it's 4:30 a.m. Mate, that is early. Mate, although I was up at guys, I gotta say I was up at 3 a.m. this morning for work at 4 a.m. So if I do lose my train of thought and look a bit tired, that's because I've been awake since 3 a.m. this morning. Curry Muncher says, and Bennett is a fud, best in class pish. He thinks every day fan is fucking stupid. So Curry's not a fan of Bennett either. So that's that interesting thing. Curry, who would you like to see take over the club and be the chairman of the club? Who would you like to see in places? Now, there was an interesting question earlier in the live chat. Let me see if I can quickly find it here from Rangers Union. Here we go. So Rangers Union asked here, do you think Kylie Fox will bid again for Rangers? Now, for those of you who don't remember, Kylie Fox was the American businesswoman, the venture capitalist who wanted to buy a controlling stake in Rangers, but was put off by the fact that obviously the board wouldn't sell to her, that Douglas Park obviously was against her, that the requests that she put in weren't obviously granted, and she didn't have a very, very good reputation with the board. My personal opinion on this is that Kylie Fox would be an absolute disaster for this club. She is a venture capitalist. She's an asset stripper. She'd be someone who I think if she came in and wasn't raising enough funds through the playing for the team, through the turnstiles, through merchandising, through the football on the pitch, she would start to asset strip. That would be sell our best players, sell things off, sell things out, perhaps even privatize the training ground, stuff like that. She is an asset stripper. She is someone who is in it to make as much money as she can out of it. She's not in it because she loves football. She's not in it because she loves Glasgow Rangers. She's in it purely to make money. Now, if you look at the monies that she promised, which was 75 million, of that 75 million, I think 15 to 20 million was actually her money. The rest was coming from hedge funds, faceless hedge funds. That would be a disaster for the club. You've got hedge funds. Now, one thing hedge funds want is a massive return on their investment. And if the situation is that Rangers aren't returning a massive return on that, they're going to want their money repaid some other way. And then you've got a situation where, again, we've got to sell off our best players. We've got to sell our things off because that is the way to raise money. The assets the club owns is the only way of raising money. So, no, I really do hope that she does not get involved with the club. Brian says, hope she doesn't. That's all we need is an asset stripper. Rebecca says, don't want that woman anywhere near our club. Price says she can strip but without the assets. Kylie is definitely not we need at Rangers. Her political ties and her links to crypto is as dodgy as a Celtic coach at your under 14s football. Very funny, Corey. I love that. Yeah, she's definitely a dodgy character, isn't she? So we don't want her involved. And yeah, her political views in the US, again, are not something that we want to be associated with. So she's definitely somebody we don't want near the club. She does bring obviously that political side of things as well. And in an era where we're trying to move away from that political side of things, the sectarian side of things, we don't want politics brought into it, and she would, I think, do that. So for me, it's a no Rangers union to Kylie Fox. The other thing, obviously, like I said, is like I said, was Europe. They've got to be successful in Europe. That's something else Bennett has really got to think about. He has got an awful lot, and he's got a lot of tests that he's got to overcome. He's got to overcome that transfer test. As fans, we need to set this level of tests for him as our chairman. If he's going to be our chairman and he's going to be successful as our chairman, he needs to overcome these tests. The first test is the transfer window this summer. The second test, obviously, is part of that is which players does he retain, which players does he allow to leave, which he will have a say in. Obviously, he controls the purse strings. The third test will be can we overcome Celtic? Fourth test, obviously, fan feelings. He's got to deal with those towards Wilson and towards Robertson and deal with them in the right way. He's got to deal with the European issue. He's got to help Rangers be in a position through his transfer policy. And it is at the end of the day, I know it's Wilson that buys the players and I know it's Beale that identifies the players. But at the end of the day, Bennett is the one who controls the purse strings. The board allow the money to come out. And at the end of the day, he is going to control that. Now, Michael Beale did say, didn't he, that we have more money than any of any previous Rangers manager has. I read a rumor the other day that it was up to 75 million. I don't think that's going to be true. I think that's just paper talk. And because let's face it, no club is going to reveal how much money they've got. The moment you reveal how much money you've got, you hold yourself to ransom with other clubs. The final, obviously, thing is finances. Curry says, but apparently she looks good in a bikini, according to Davey P on the Gallant Few. Guys, just a reminder, the Gallant Few, Curry, I hope I'm right about this. Curry, correct me if I'm wrong. The Gallant Few is on tonight, 8:30. On YouTube, go and check it out. The Gallant Few is an absolutely awesome podcast. I love the Gallant Few. I love listening to it. I love Curry's views. I love Mason. I love all those guys on there. They're all fantastic. Davey P, Davey T, I think it is. I love them all. So yeah, guys, go and watch the Gallant Few at 8:30. It is spot on. Curry, I want to get on the Gallant Few. Help me get on there, mate. Brian says good. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about finances, shall we? So obviously, finances are a big thing for this club. We got ourselves into a position where, where we got ourselves into a big financial trouble, and we don't want to be down that alley again. Now, today there's been some information revealed about Rangers' finances in terms of the European run. So, at the end of the day, let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at those figures, shall we? Okay, so Europa League. We made £18.1 million from the Europa League campaign last season. We made £9 million more than Celtic. There you go. That's one big positive there. Beat Celtic by £9 million. They may have 9 points, but we got 9 million clubs. Owen, you're not one of my haters. Then had a couple of over the last few pods. Hell, ever since I wore the England top. Ha 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 ha. I'm English, Curry, but like I said, I don't dislike Scotland. I don't want Scotland to lose. Obviously, I'm a diehard Rangers fan as well. So there we go. So anyway, in terms of that money, how does that money split down? Well, Rangers got 3.15 million for the starting fee in starting payment for being in the Europa League. They then received 800,000 for their coefficient, 2.5 million in TV revenues, 2.1 million for progressing from the group, 430,000 from knocking out Dortmund, 1.05 million from beating Red Star. They backed that up with 1.5 million from beating Braga, 2.45 million for the semi-win over Leipzig, and then 4 million for the runners-up spot. So the club brought in £18.1 million from their Europa League run, which just shows how vital Europe is. That is absolutely vital in terms of bringing finances into the club. And the only way you can make sure that you do well in Europe is by backing the manager, by backing the the sporting director to bring in the right players to allow this team to compete. And that's why this summer is so massive. Curry says 18.1 million plus the transfers. Where did the money go, as it was not on the squad? I think the big test is this summer, Curry. Do we have a situation where that money starts to be spent on the team? That is something I think is going to be a big test. If the money is not spent on the team, if there is not the 18.1 million there, plus the Bassi money, plus the Patterson money, etc., then we do not start to need to ask questions. Where has this money gone? There needs to be an open, transparent conversation from the board, from Bennett, as to where this money's gone. And like Caroline said earlier in the live chat, I think you've got to be open, you've got to be transparent. The communication has got to be better from the board down to the fans. So where has that money gone? And if that money is not spent this summer, then where has it gone? And where has our money gone? Brian says in the live chat, would like to know what our finances are like. We will never know. The accounts were actually late being published. Brian won't find out until November when the figures are released. And Brian says, wouldn't hold our breath, Curry. They'll kiss and tell. As well, you've got a situation where the Champions League money will come into it as well. Now, I know Rangers obviously didn't progress from the group stage in the Champions League after some very depressing performances against Liverpool and Napoli, for example. But, in terms of Champions League money, the average outpay to a team is 53.7 million. That's the average. The lowest paid was to a Bulgarian team last season, which was £20.7 million, which is again 2.6 million more than Rangers earned from being a runner-up in the Europa League. So it's clear that top table, the Champions League, is where all the cash is at. And that's why Rangers need to be in a position to constantly compete to get into the Champions League group stages, to progress from the group stages. If Rangers want to be a club again that are a force in Europe, and that is something we are capable of. We've got the fan base, we've got the passion, we've got some quality players already. If we need to supplement those players, then we've got to get into Europe. We've got to maintain that. And that is a thing for Bennett, for Beale, for Wilson, to make sure that we maintain going forward. Because at the end of the day, Champions League and Champions League money. Now, I'm not saying for a minute we win the Champions League, not when you've got the likes, obviously, of Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, for example, FC Barcelona, etc. But progression from the group stage, money is being brought in that way, and we need to do that. And that is definitely something, definitely something to consider. Okay, so Champions League money, will have that coming in as well this season. Fantastic. Now, Curry Muncher says in the live chat, we are going to need at least 5 million for keepers, another 6 million for Tillman, and 10 million for the striker position. Yeah, I think you're spot on, Curry. We are going to need a lot of money. I think those 5 players, you're looking at a keeper. I think you're looking at a central defender of some description being brought in. There's very much, I think, a desire to bring a defender in, especially since James Sands left, to compete with Davis, to compete with Goldson. That's got to be there. There's got to be money raised there. So that's another one. Tillman money. I think the Tillman money is there from what I've been hearing, reading in the press and reading things, that has been ring fenced, that 6 million, and it is there for him. The striker position is another one. We've been linked with the likes of Josh Madger, Joel Pirot from Swansea, for example. Is it Kristovic? I think the other guy that we were linked with is, as well as the Honduran international as well that we were linked with during the week, who is called Luis Palma from Arith Thessalonica, who is a left winger. So perhaps a bit of competition for Kent, or a Kent replacement there, maybe. there is money there, I think. Curry Munch says our biggest hope is someone coming in for Kamara, BB, and Lunny. Yeah, I think there is some big decisions to make there, isn't there? Over Glenn Kamara, over Borna Barisic, and over John Lundstrom. We do not want to be sat in a position like we are now, where we've got 8 players that we own going out of contract that we're not going to get any money for. Alfredo, I think, will be off to the Premier League this coming summer. He's been linked with Villa, Palace, Middlesbrough, who else? A number of Premier League clubs anyway. And he's probably going to be off, and we're not going to get any money for him. And look, I know he's paid back the £1 million we paid to HJK Helsinki, but when you've put money into these players, when you've developed these players, you've made them perhaps who they are today. You want to get a return on your investment, and we don't want to be in a position where we're sat here next summer going, well, Lundstrom walks for nothing, well, Borna Barisic walks for nothing, and we don't get any money. So is there a decision to make this summer over those players? Lundstrom's got a year left on his contract. Borna Barisic has got a year left on his contract. I'm not quite sure how long Glenn Kamara's got left on his contract, but I know Kamara was actually getting interest from certain parties. So at the end of the day, I think that again is a place we can raise money through player sales. And Michael Beale has hinted at that, hasn't he? He said, that he's had a conversation with contract players as well. So at the end of the day, that is another big source of income for the club. Brian says, until we have a settled team, don't want to repeat of the Champions League embarrassing defeats. Yeah, in particular that Liverpool defeat, which I got no end of stick for because my daughter's a Liverpool fan and my ex-wife is a Liverpool fan, which got me a lot of stick. Curry Muncher says, Brian, never want to see that again. I will never forgive Giovanni van Bronckhorst, most of that squad that capitulated like they did. I can't help but feel, Curry, that if we'd had Michael Beale, they would not have capitulated in that fashion. Anyway, so we've got to have a situation where we are in a financial position to compete at the highest level, and the Champions League money is a vital one. Player sales, I think, is another area we need to look at. And again, these are all decisions for Beale, for Wilson, and for John Bennett. Massive decisions, massive summer coming up for the club. Now, let's talk a little bit about the game on Saturday. Little game that's apparently taking place in Glasgow. Don't know much about it. Apparently, it's just a little thing. No consequence, apparently. Who am I kidding? It's a massive game at Parkhead where there will be no Rangers fans, obviously, so there will be an awful lot of pressure on our team and on the referee. And it's going to be an excellent character test of how far this team has come. If we forget the Viaplay League Cup final for a moment and we go, because that was obviously, I think, down to some dodgy team selection from Michael Beale. You look at his record in the league. He's only drawn one game. This team hasn't lost since November. This team is going the right way. Basically, we're showing league-winning form, but unfortunately, they're not slipping up, and that's where we're at. But Saturday, for me, is about laying a glove on them. It's about cutting them. It's about showing them that this club is not going anywhere, and that even with this squad, we can lay a glove on them. We can hit them. We can hurt them. And then next year, when we've revamp this squad, we are back and we are ready to really knock them to the canvas. That has got to be the situation. All down to blinking Ross Wilson. Players leave for nothing. And Nicholas says in the live chat, don't think we'll get much cash for the players we need to offload. No, unfortunately, I don't think we'll get any money for Kamar Roof. Cannot see anybody buying Kamar Roof unless we are going to sell him to medical science. I've never known a person in my entire life get so many injuries and so many illnesses as Kamar Roof. Perhaps we should sell him to medical science. Maybe that's an answer. So let's think about some positional battles. Now, obviously, like I said, on tomorrow's podcast with Victoria, we're going to be actually talking in a bit more depth about the game. I didn't want to try to. My aim tonight was just to come on, do a pod, talk to you guys, get you guys in the live chat involved. Like I say, this channel is a fan-driven channel. We are here every day for you, bringing you news every day. We do it for nothing. I don't get paid for doing this. I do it for free, and I love doing it because I'm a Rangers fan. I've been a Rangers fan since 1987. Since Sooners became the manager, I loved Chris Woods and Terry Butcher, Trevor Stephen, Gary Stevens, Ian Durant, Annie McCoy, Davey Cooper. Growing up, they were my heroes. Robert Fleck, I always remember. Here's a story for you guys. Just a bit off topic here. I'm just going slightly off topic. I do apologise. Now, I remember Robert Fleck scored an overhead kick. I can't remember, was it against Hearts, I think it was, or maybe it was against Aberdeen. I can't remember. Anyway, he scored an overhead kick. And I remember watching that and going, wow, that's amazing. And then going out in the garden and trying to reproduce it and just falling flat on my face in the mud every single time, and then getting a bollocking off my mum for coming in dirty. But that was back in the day, guys. Back in the day, a very long time ago. I think it was like 87, so I'd have been about 9-10 years old back then. Now, obviously, Michael Beale has certain selection dilemmas, going into this game on Saturday. Who does he play where? Thank you, Brian, for that compliment. I do try. So where are the position battles? What do we need to look out for? So let's start with some of the clear position battles before we talk about some of the other issues with the players. Curry Muncher says, Owen, how did you end up being a Rangers fan and where are you from? Can't pinpoint the accent. So, okay, before we talk about position battles, I'm going to go off on a tangent. So, Curry, I became a Rangers fan in 1987 when Graham Souness became the manager. The reason I became attracted to Rangers was because at that point, my favourite goalkeeper, I was a goalkeeper. I played in goal back then. And my hero growing up as a goalkeeper was Chris Woods. Chris Woods joins Rangers. I start following Chris Woods. I start following Rangers. I fall in love with Glasgow Rangers, with the passion of the fans. I loved the team at the time, with Terry Butcher in the team, Gary Stevens, Trevor Stephen, Ian Durrant. I love Ali McCoist, man, absolute legend. Loved, Ali. Loved the way he conducts himself. Loved the way he talks about things. Sorry, my dog is behind the door, pushing the door. That's why my Rangers shirt is coming at me. And that's why I started supporting Rangers, because of obviously Chris Woods, because of Graham Souness coming to the club. That's how I started. I was 9 years old at the time. And where's my accent come from? Well, actually, I'm originally from Sunderland in the northeast of England, but I moved to the Midlands when I was 8 years old. So I've lost my accent. It does come out sometimes, my accent, but I'm originally from the northeast of England. Okay, so that's where I'm originally from. I'm originally from the northeast of England. And like I said, that's my story. That's how I became a Rangers fan back in '87. I think I've taken the picture off here now, but I've got a picture. It's on the Facebook group anyway, of me in my Rangers shirt when I was 9 years old. The McEwen's Lager one, the Czech McEwen's Lager one. So that's how I became a Rangers fan, Curry. I've been a Rangers fan ever since. No, Sunderland born. That's where I'm from originally, Sunderland bred. Born in Sunderland General Hospital and lived in Durham as a kid. Yes, that's where I originally came from. So let's move on to our position battles. Anyways, let's talk position battles, guys. Now, what I want you to do in the live chat is I want you to play along. Who's going to play where? So let's start off with left back, guys. Who would you like to see play at left back? Obviously, there is a position battle. There's a position battle between Ridvan and Borna. Now, Borna has had one or two mares at Parkhead over the years. We've conceded the same goal a good few times because Borna's turned off. That ball whipped into the back post and Borna's gone to sleep on it. So do we still play with Borna? Is that the way to go? His crossing ability, his understanding with Goldson, Davis and Tav. So do we go for that solid back foot, or do we go for something different? Does Michael Beale take a risk? Now, you go back to the good old days, Walter Smith would often take a risk, wouldn't he? He'd throw a player in there. You'd go, why is he playing? And, it would be a masterstroke from Walter. Is that something Michael Beale's going to do on Saturday? Is he going to have a masterstroke there? Is he going to be throwing Ridvan in there? Ridvan brings something different. He can go past the player. He's much better going forward. So would you want to see Ridvan or Borna at left back? Now, during the week, I was saying that I'd like to see Ridvan play there. I don't think he will play there. I think he will pick. I think Michael Beale will go with Borna, but I would love to see Ridvan get a run out. Nicholas Moore in the live chat says, similarly to me, Owen, my favourite players were Gaza and Laudrup when I was younger. As a Rangers fan, Rangers was the team for me. Yeah, I loved Gaza. Obviously, Gaza's from the northeast as well, even though he is Newcastle. And Laudrup, loved Brian Laudrup. Absolutely fantastic players. Obviously, Ronald de Boer as well. Fernando Rickson, God rest his soul. Amazing. Jörg Alberts. All favourite players of mine growing up. And my favourite ever goal that I ever saw, my favourite ever Rangers goal is Gaza's goal, second goal against Aberdeen when he picks the ball up his own half, he runs at them and scores. It's the game that we clinched the league title. That was my favourite ever Rangers goal. Curry Muncher says Yilmaz for me, but Beale will go for Borna Barisic. Borna can whip the ball in, but there is no one there to collect it at the back. Yes, I agree. Definitely agree with you, Curry, there on that one. But yeah, I would go with Ridvan. Right, next selection dilemma. Do you go with Alfredo Morelos up front, or do you go with Antonio Cholak up front? Where is your decision to make? Now, I was listening to another podcast this morning, a Rangers Review, actually, with Derek Clark and Joshua Barry, I think it was, Ron there, and they were talking about Cholak. And they made a point about him. If you look at where Cholak scores his goals, he scores a lot of goals against teams in the lower half of the league. He's very good at beating the low block. And the last couple of games, he has looked fairly awful, hasn't he? So, is Cholak the man? Can he make a difference? Is he someone who's going to help to break down this Celtic defence? Or do you go with Alfie? What's the situation? What's the situation there? Creamer says, I had no choice while everyone else was leering bar black sheep. I was learning the Billy Boys. Yay. Nice one, Curry. So, yeah, do you go with Morelos or Cholak? Morelos obviously has that record against Celtic. He does wind them up, which is good. He does get in their faces, which is good, which is what you want. That's what Nicholas says the same as me. I'm going to go with, I agree with Nicholas. You go with Alfie for this game. You give him a chance to prove himself. If he blows it, then perhaps, you go with Cholak for the rest of the season. And you pretty much get a situation where Alfie's made your mind up for you that he's gone by the end of this season. But he does get under the skin of the Rats, doesn't he? He does get under their skin. He does wind them up. Or do you play with a false nine? And that's something else that I've heard been rumoured. Chris Boyd was talking about that, wasn't he? About playing a false nine, about using Tillman as a false nine, about really changing tactics and throwing Celtic out. Is that something else we'd do? Could we play with Tillman as a false nine? Is that a situation that could present itself? Tillman certainly has the skill and the ability to play that position. And, is that something we could do? Nicholas says, out of two players, I'd prefer Cholak, though. I think, obviously, Cholak has his place. And I think, whether Cholak's the man for next season, I think it is a whole different podcast and a whole different video, and we'll talk about that at a later date. But for Saturday, do you go with Morelos or Cholak? Let me know in the live chat. Now, one of the big decisions, obviously, is whether Nicholas Raskin is fit enough to play Saturday. I think it is absolutely vital that Raskin plays. If you go back to the Viaplay League Cup final, when Cantwell, Raskin, Jack were on, the team looked a hell of a lot better. And that is the midfield I would go with on Saturday. I really would go with Jack. I'd go with Raskin. I'd go with Cantwell. Raskin, for me, even if he's 85% fit, 90% fit, has to play. I think a 90% fit Nicholas Raskin or an 85% Nicholas Raskin is better than John Lundstrom, better than Glenn Kamara. Definitely the case, just don't Lunny in the squad. What a waste now. Jordan wants to play Cholak up front. I have no idea for this one. I favour Cholak as Morelos has pissed me off too much. Tillman as a false nine is risky as he's not had a good game against them yet. Can he do that role for the first time? That is a big question, isn't it? I think at the end of the day, can Tillman do that? And is it too late to say? Is it too late? Is it too late to actually, try that out? If that was something they were going to try, playing Tillman as a false nine, is that something they should have tried in an earlier game? And that perhaps rules that out as a possibility for this game. Vote Blackadder says, have to say I do like to watch your podcast and how you refer to the scum across the city. Keep up the great work. Yes, the great unwashed, that mob, other things that I try to keep it as clean as possible. Like I said, I like to think that Glasgow Rangers Nation obviously is a serious channel. Myself and Victoria are very determined to build this as big as possible. So we do try and tone it down a little bit. But we both hate Celtic with a passion. Raskin, Jack and Cantwell in midfield, says Brian. Agree with you 100% on that. And I wouldn't even have Lundstrom on the bench, possibly. The best place for Lundstrom on Saturday is on his couch watching the game on the telly. That's the best place for Lundstrom. Look, yes, when he first came to the club, he did very well. But I just think since he's come to the club, since the last 12 to 18 months, he's really fallen off, which is something he's done at his previous clubs. You ask any Sheffield United fan about him, he was good for the first 12 to 18 months and then fell right off at the end. Nicholas said scum is being polite to them. Very funny. There is selection dilemmas. There is selection dilemmas all over this pitch for Michael Beale to. And it's kind of good, though, in a way, isn't it? They've got players competing for positions. This realistically is not going to be the team that plays Celtic next season. It's not going to be that team. It's going to be a different team that faces Celtic next season. But, this team have got to lay down a marker. They've got to lay a glove on them. And we will be talking about that in tomorrow's podcast. Okay. We're joined also by CGM 55. Even Nicholas, fancy meeting you here. CGM, another fantastic contributor to Rangers podcast. CGM, I know you were on Rangers Review this morning. I heard you've been referred to by Derek this morning on Rangers Review. Well, guys, lots of selection demos, lots of things to think about. Now, if I was going to name my lineup for the game on Saturday, I would go obviously with McGregor in goal. I think that's a given. Now, what I'm going to say now is this is my lineup. This is not necessarily the lineup I think Michael Beale would play. This is how I would line up. I'd have McGregor in goal. I'd have a back four of Tav, Goldson, Davis, and Ridvan. I'd play with Raskin, Cantwell, and Jack in midfield, and a front three of Tillman, Kent, and I would play Alfie just because he gets under their nose. Definitely. Curry says we need to close down McGregor, keep him out of the game, and then midfield will struggle. Absolutely. Yes, that's a job for Ryan Jack, isn't it, Curry? Definitely. Definitely something that he needs to do. We need to get in their faces from minute one. I don't want to go on too much about the game and what's going to happen tomorrow, because like I said, that is a discussion that myself, Victoria and David from Heart and Hand will be having. And at some point, obviously, we will be having Curry on the show as well. I know, Curry, we're going to have you on the show. Love your takes. Love how you just... One of the things I'm from the north of England, and this is again off topic, I do apologise. But I'm someone who I like to tell it as it is. I like it to be clear. I like it to be to the point. I don't like faffing around, beating around the bush. And I know Curry is like that as well. So it'd be great to have Curry on at some point. Obviously, a little bit of transfer news. Obviously, the Luis Palma from Aris Thessalonica has been linked with a move to Rangers, which could be a signal that maybe Ryan Kent is not going to stay, given the fact that Palma is a left-sided midfield player. There is obviously that fact that Rangers may also go back to Swansea and reignite their interest in Morgan Whittaker as well, who Rangers apparently had a bid for, turned down in January. That is something else that I have read. CGM 555 says, I am more and more convincing myself that 3-5-2 is the way to go. He would go McGregor, Souter, Goldson, Davis, Borna Barisic, Tav as the wing backs, Jack Raskin, Cantwell, Kent and Sakala. So no Tillman in his team. Interesting. My fear is the ref will buckle under pressure from the play acting by the Rats and the influence of the crowd. Cammy K in the live chat. Cammy says, evening troops, evening Cammy. How are you doing, buddy? Right, guys, we're going to start putting it together now. Yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to talk about was the referee. Now, the referee has been announced for Saturday's game, and it's Kevin Clancy. Now, Kevin Clancy is someone who has been known to have a ricket or two on him, a mistake or two on him, especially as it pertains towards Rangers. My big concern, like yours, and you've said it in the live chat, is the fact you forgot about Tillman. No worries. Do you know what, CGM? I did that earlier. I wrote a list of players that were out of contract, and I said I only keep Kent and Jack, and completely forgot that Tillman was on the list. Very embarrassing. Yeah, my worry, like yours, clearly is in the live chat, is that he will buckle under the pressure of a Parkhead that is totally biased to one side, that is 100% going to be, 100% unwashed soap dodgers. So at the end of the day, that is a big concern for me. He's got to be strong. He's got to be, go out and referee properly and show that he is a quality referee. This is obviously some of the SFA want to trust him with, but he's got to prove to us, I think, that he is worthy of the job. And my big concern is that Clancy will have a clanger, and it'll be Kevin Clanger rather than Kevin Clancy. Thomas Jones, Kevin Clancy is biased towards Rangers, apparently. Hello, Cammy. Curry Muncher says, refs are not biased, they're just shite. The VA works fine. It's the numpties that are using it. Absolutely. Butterflies will kick in tomorrow afternoon properly. Absolutely. Cammy will kick in big time. Yeah, I think you're right, Curry. There is a big problem with referees in Scotland. I think, there's something that's got to be done this summer as regards refereeing standards. You look at some of the decisions that this year that have gone to VAR that have been made by refs, and they're absolutely shocking. They're absolutely appalling. And even using VAR, they make massive mistakes. I mean, look, I know I'm a Rangers fan. I know I've got royal blue, light blue coloured goggles on. But please tell me how that was a penalty for Celtic against Ross County. Please tell me how on God's green earth that was a penalty. It was never a penalty. Never in a million years. And please also tell me where the 8 minutes came from at the end of the second half. I'd love to know. But there we go. Anyway, guys, thank you so much to everyone for joining us in the live chat. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please remember to come back tomorrow night, where we will be having David Marshall from Heart and Hand, as well as Miss Victoria Searle, to talk all things Glasgow Rangers, to talk about Douglas Park stepping down, to talk about... there we go. There's Victoria. If we can't have her actually here on the show, there you are. There's Victoria. She's much nicer to look at than me, much prettier than me. Victoria, if you're in the live chat, you are, aren't you? Much prettier than I am. Even though you do sound like Darth Vader. You do sound like Darth Vader at the moment. But yeah, so please come back tomorrow night for the podcast with Battle Fever is on. It is. Good pod as always, Owen. Thank you, Nicholas. Not the best day of kickoff time. No, for an old firm, it isn't. Cammy, Sunday will be good, wouldn't it? Great pod as always. Cheers. Thomas Jones, come on, Rangers. Curry, behave, Curry. Victoria, if you're watching, respond to Curry, will you? Yeah, but we will be back tomorrow night with David Marshall talking about Douglas Park talking about Connor Goldson's comments about where Rangers currently are. I'm talking obviously a big preview of the Old Firm game on Saturday. Guys, remember, Victoria, you're getting loads of compliments here. Cami K says, not too bad looking for an eye. Definitely. Anyway, Cody Smith says, we are the people. We are the people, Cody. Absolutely, we are the people. Every Saturday we follow. We will be back tomorrow night, like I said, with a big preview of the big game, guys. Battle Fever is on. We are building up towards this big game. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you here on Glasgow Rangers Nation. Guys, we'll do this. We're going to do this. I've got a really good feeling with 3 Old Firm victories coming up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Guys, I'll keep checking out Glasgow Rangers Nation. Please hit that sub, ring that notification bell, and give this video a like. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm. I'll be back to speak to you again very soon here on the channel. Keep the faith, guys. Keep the faith.